Hey you, welcome to Shockwave, a weekly podcast bent on bringing to light divergent ideas through thought-provoking conversation. The free exchange of opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints is what centers our solidarity as humans who share this planet. So, let's talk. I'm your host, Phil Kidd, joined by my token British co-host, Luke Vole. This episode, we're discussing an issue that's been talked about for decades, but has recently seen a resurgence in attention. You may have heard them called Generation Me, Generation Y, the Peter Pan generation, the Boomerang generation, or Millennials, as most of you have probably heard of us called. For those listening who are wondering what the hell I'm talking about, I'll link a video called The Millennial Question in the description. You can check out afterward. But basically, it's Simon Sinek discussing why he thinks millennials are having such a tough go at life. He brings up 4 reasons why he thinks this is: parenting, technology, impatience, and environment. But let's start with parenting, since that's where he started. Luke, I sent you the video, and you said it kind of like you really connected with some of the points he was bringing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of crazy how much this is like everyday life, but you overlook it until you hear somebody talk about it like this,
Yeah, sometimes takes an outside perspective to like really analyze like how your life is going.
Yeah, it's just when he said like being lazy and as you said, failed parenting strategies and just like the real world is not, you're not that special when you get into the real world. And your mum and dad, like, when they said you can get that dream job and stuff like that, it's like you can do it if you want to, but when you get in the real world, it's like crap.
Yeah, is that what you were told growing up? Like, were you? Well, I mean, both you and I are millennials. I'm 28. You're what? Your early 20s?
22.
You're 22. Yeah. So we're both millennials. I think technically millennials are people like born kind of after 84, 85. He says 84, but I've got Wikipedia open and it's a pretty big range. Basically anyone entering young adulthood in the 21st century. So there are still millennials. Yeah. I mean, millennials are still being born, right? It really has to do with the new century and technology and stuff. Were you told that as like how do you feel about how your parents raised you? Like,
yeah, I mean, well, looking back on, was I said, can you get, you can get your dream job if you just put your mind to it. I mean, I don't specifically recall anything, any strategy as like strict as that, to come out of and whilst I grew up, but I did get raised like, when I was 10 years old, I had my own personal desktop PC. Do you know what I mean? So this is why I can relate to this a lot, because I do definitely, see what he's coming from when he says like how technology gets involved. But as a result of parenting, that definitely has a big impact on, when I got my own PC and my own technology that early on from what, I will do one day.
I mean, I was fortunate enough not to. Well, I guess we'll talk about the technology in a bit, but at least regarding the parenting, I feel my parents I think they did mostly a good job. Like I'm pretty fortunate to have the childhood that I did. Like I got to travel a lot. My parents lived overseas for a while. So I did get a broader view of humanity, I guess, if I want to go really deep about it. But I'm whenever I think about it, I am really thankful that my parents like did most stuff pretty cool. I even though I am like a millennial, my childhood kind of skipped that whole participation trophy era. We still had like first, second, third place, and everyone else, you had fun and you were thankful you got to participate. You didn't get a participation anything. As far as the rest of the parenting goes, I think I was never like, my parents did tell me you're special. They told me you're special quite a few times. And I do remember them telling me, like, I'm not sure if it was them or like other people, but I remember hearing quite often, like, you can do anything you set your mind to, which in reality is total bullshit. No, like I can't be a a freaking yak if I wanted to be. That's just absurd. I can't be a rocket scientist. I don't have the brains for it. I've accepted that reality. And algebra class really enforced that thinking. Like, no, I'm not a math person. I'm not really a science person.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think I wrapped my head around.
If you want to be an astronaut, I mean, it's just like, well, that's probably definitely not going to happen.
The top like 0.0002% of people end up even being capable of being an astronaut. It's not a very likely thing. You're much more likely to be a guy cleaning barnacles off the outside of the shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
But barnacles, they don't even go in the ocean. As far as parenting, I had a bit of both, I guess. And I was a stupid kid. Like most kids are stupid. But I didn't have to, like, I wasn't totally gullible. I realized pretty early on that there were some things I couldn't do. I didn't have these delusions of grandeur, that I feel like.
So when you got out in the real world, did you, of a certain age, I guess similar to like, I don't know, I guess I'd say 18. Do you think there was any kind of failed parenting there where you didn't feel like, oh crap, I don't feel so special now, like my parents said I would?
I think there were probably moments because I dropped out of university when I was 19 or 20. I did a year and a half university, and then I kind of lost motivation. I don't know if it was necessarily a parenting thing. I think that was a circumstantial thing where I was just like in a bad, not a very good campus. Like the program wasn't very supportive. And I also didn't avail myself of resources too. Like that was a lot of my own problem. Yeah. And I wasn't very mature, and that just happens with time. Like I'm such a different person now than I am then. And, 10 years makes a big difference. It's like a third of my life at this point. As far as parenting goes, I think my parents did all they could. Sure, they weren't perfect, but Mom, Dad, if you're listening right now, you guys did the best you can, and I don't blame you for anything you did wrong.
That's what about you? Say as well. Yeah.
How did you feel about your parenting experience on the receiving end?
Yeah. As I said, I know we're not talking about technology at the beginning, but it's like, as I said there, like, I don't think my parents deliberately obviously set out, to make me a secluded kid as I grew up. But in terms of actual parenting and, making me, did I feel that kind of thing? I think I stand with exactly what you said. I had a similar experience with education when I left school. I went to college for 2 years to do something that I left almost straight away. That was 2 years of my life absolutely wasted. But I think my parents did, certainly, definitely everything they could do, encouraging to study and stuff like that. But it was more just me being pretty stupid when I was young. But I think everyone struggles with identifying themselves when they're younger. Especially, with what we're talking about now, being a millennial. Yeah. I feel like I completely resonate with what you said. Parents did, all they could. There's nothing in terms of, they didn't definitely enforce, you can do everything you want to do out there and stuff like that, to the point where I was completely delusional when I got out there into the real world and of a certain age where I understood more things. But yeah, definitely exactly what you said, really, in terms of that.
Okay. The technology too, we were touching on technology a bit in there. You being 6 years younger than me, I guess you probably got your hands on at least a smartphone earlier than I did. I feel like my high school experience just missed smartphones. Like people were still using flip phones when I was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when I was 12 or 13, it went from, if I remember correctly, it went from like the flip phone to the iPhone 3G. And that's when that all started happening. And everyone was getting on smartphones everywhere.
Sorry, that was at what age?
I think like when I was 12 or 13. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to remember. I think it was even 11 to 13 years old for me when that iPhone 3G came out, and that is when most people ditched, the Motorola flip phone, and I don't know if you
Right.
guys have that out there.
I had a Motorola flip phone. That was my thing.
Yeah.
I had a Motorola flip phone. Yeah.
I mean, there is something nice about, having actual physical buttons to text with and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
But
a bit
that's where it
more
will change.
satisfying. But then there's Blackberries too, right?
Yeah. But that was quick to rise and quick to fall, wasn't it, with BlackBerry?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, technology it's really enabled us to, to bleed over to the impatience thing. It's really allowed us to have a lot of things instantly. But it's really distracting too. Like Simon, what he talked about, it being addictive with that, was it dopamine?
Every time you use it or like say hi to one of your friends, it releases dopamine, which it's addictive, as you say.
And I can totally, I think I'm doing better than I used to, but I think for a while, like at least when I first got my smartphone, I completely was in that place. Like when you get a text, and even some days now, I'll be checking my phone like every 15 to 30 seconds. Like even if I don't hear anything, I'll check in it and I'll realize like, wow, I'm a slave to this thing. So even as we're speaking right now, my phone is in my bedroom right now, and it's I'm not going to be checking it at all during this podcast.
That was what I was going to ask you. I was like, is it on the surface of the table, like you said?
No. And you know what? If people call or they text and it's important, they can leave a message. I'm sure they can wait an hour till I get back to them. Like most texts, I'd say like 99% of the texts I get are not important. Yeah. Like they're just like there's some Bitmoji or the, hey, how are you doing? Or, check out this thing I saw today. It's not really like if we didn't have smartphones, most of these texts wouldn't be being sent because it'd just be such a pain to text them out. Yeah. But it's so easy now, right? Like you want to express anything, you just text someone. And I feel like, texting is great for communicating vital information as and so much can be misunderstood via text too, right? Like you almost have to over express when you're texting so people don't get a wrong idea or a wrong impression. So many times you end with a period and people, you end with a period like a good grammatical sentence should, and people go, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Are you mad? I'm like, no, I'm not feeling particularly excited or sad. I'm somewhere in the middle, period.
Exactly. And they'll just think, you're being really blunt or just, it could turn into something and escalate into something completely different when it is just words on the screen. And if you communicated that in real life, it'd be so much different. I also feel like a lot of people are in denial. Like if you were to say, are you addicted to your smartphone to anyone like similar to our age gap, or even if you're a millennial, they would say no. But if you put it to the test, can you just not look at your phone at a restaurant meal? I guarantee like 8 out of 10 people would say yes. Say they're not, but in fact they are. Yeah.
I was just about to say, shoot, what was it? It's also led to an easy way to be impersonal, right? It's like an easy out. People are so much flakier now. Like I remember I did hit the tail end of my high school and university life did hit technology, but like there wasn't really mobile online dating when I was in high school or university. People still had to have that interpersonal connection. You had to actually know how to talk to people. Now, I've done the dating thing. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I have tried the online dating thing years ago. None of those relationships really panned out well. The best relationships I had were when I met people in person. Hell, I've certainly never made a friendship, like a good long lasting friendship online. Okay. Except for when I joined a band via Kijiji, but that was, they needed a drummer, really? And then they turned out to be great guys and we're still great friends. We hang out all the time. In fact, I play D&D with a couple of them, every other week too. But yeah, it's not like yeah, you can't connect so deeply with someone when you can see you see everything laid out as is. Like there's almost no discovery.
Yeah.
When you do the online thing, it's something that
bonding.
No, there's something that we're losing more and more. And I think Simon brings up a really interesting point towards the end of his talk. He's talking about how people, like relationships with people and connecting with people, relying on people, enjoying people's company is such an integral part of just enjoying life, because we're social beings, right?
Yep.
Without that connectedness, without the connectedness, as long as you don't become dependent on people, right? Without that connectedness, it's no amount of like texting and bitmojis and memes can fill that void, Luke.
I mean, it's just when he said
you can't fill the void with memes.
Well, it's when he said when he was out at a restaurant with his friends and he wants them to leave their phones at home, and they might obviously bring one phone just in case they can call a Uber or something like that. But just because, and I can totally relate with this, because even with my own family, I mean, I never thought I would, think upon it this way. But when I think back to the last restaurant meal we had, I think I had my phone out and my dad had his phone out, but we were still talking. But occasionally, you might get an email or something like that, and then you just realize how antisocial that is. And just exactly what Simon was pointing out, how he encourages his friends to leave the phones at home and stuff like that, because you don't need it for that space of time, unless you, as he said, you want to take a picture of your for Instagram food or something like that.
He's not. I mean, come on, we're not insane. Food looks good. You got to share the experience with everyone in the world. You got to keep in mind though that like Simon and his friends aren't millennials. Like Simon's not. He's like right on the edge, right? So it's probably easier for them to do that. I think if I went out with a bunch of my friends and I proposed that to them and I was like, hey, can everyone leave their phones at home except for one of us? I think that they'd probably think I was being ridiculous. Especially like, because when you go out, depending on what you're going out to do, right? Like if you're going out with buddies to wingman for them or something, I guess they need their phone to write numbers down or something. But, but it really depends on what your purpose is. Yeah. If you're just going out for dinner, which I don't think, like, I can't remember the last time I just went out with friends for dinner. Like don't think I don't have friends, Luke. I have friends. Okay, I swear.
It's true. I have friends as well. And we don't.
But most of the time,
and dine.
But most of the time, you want to do an activity, right? And my friend Dan put this in a really interesting way. He said, and he's my age, and I feel like the older you get, the more you can really appreciate people. But it really depends on the person. But he said, like, if you have a great friendships if you think of the person before the activity. So like, instead of saying, I want to go play pool, who will go with me? You'd rather say, man, I want to hang out with Jerry. And you text Jerry up, hey, Jerry, you want to hang out? Jerry says, yeah, because he values your company too. And then you get together and you say, maybe we should go hit up the bowling alley, or I don't know. I don't go bowling, but something like that. Then you have like a valuable relationship, because you want to just be with them because you enjoy their company, you appreciate them, and then you go from there and think, well, like maybe we should do something else together, but still together, right? That's something I didn't have for a long time, I don't think. And maybe, I don't know if it's a millennial thing. Maybe it was just a me thing. I've matured a lot. I've changed. Times change and people change with them, right? But that's something I think our generations,
in terms of that activity, sometimes I think, when a film might come out, I really want to see this film, and then I guess that's more, like the entertainment of it and stuff. Like, I want to see this film. Oh, who will I go with? More so than, as you said, I want to go, shoot some pool or something like that. and then thinking about the person where it should be the other way around, thinking about that individual and thinking, oh, I fancy hanging out with this person, because that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, although maybe there's an exception for things like movies, because those are like certain movies come out certain times of the year when you can only see them in theater for, a couple months.
Yeah.
I can understand being like, man, I really want to see this movie, but I don't want to see it alone. That's totally understandable. I think people were doing that before smartphones were around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something I think that's slowly slipping away. But
I completely agree. I mean, it's like he got to the point where he said there's no app for job satisfaction. I mean, or even strength of relationships, right?
Yeah.
So, through bonding like the way he should do, I mean, he gave that example of sitting outside the meeting room and, until the meeting starts, people would be on their phone, just like whether they're checking the latest Facebook message or the Twitter updates, where you could just interact with the people you're about to go
with. I can totally relate with that. Like when I used to go to meetings, I don't anymore at my current job, but when I was a primary counselor, I went to meetings. That was totally the case. There's set like 6 or 7 people sitting around the table and everyone's on their phones, and sure, there might be a bit of chatting, but it's mostly people on their phones texting. Sometimes they're even texting each other across the table.
Ridiculous.
It's one thing to text someone who isn't there. Yeah, but if you're texting, like, come on, just tell them about the meme you saw.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how relationships and important things don't form that way, and they take time. You slog through them. There are ups and downs, just because someone doesn't want to hang out with you, because they don't want to, or they can't hang out with you one week, doesn't mean they don't want to be your friend anymore, or that they don't value your friendship. Like there's a lot of give and take. There's ebb and flow, and impatience. Let's move on to the third thing. Impatience is a big part of that. People want friends now. They want love now.
They want to feel verified, don't they? As you said, like, you might wait a week for a friend to reply, but you kind of want that. You send a message and you want that confirmation, and if you want that, think,
they want to be happy now. You want, I still have. I'm a pretty patient person. I like to think I am, but I still have moments of impatience. Why isn't this guy texting me back? I know he saw my text. Why isn't he texting me?
I mean, I guess it is natural to think that way now, but it's because of all of this. That is why. I mean, I guess because there is a norm. I mean, generically, I guess if you text someone, I mean, most people might text back fairly responsively. So if somebody does take a while, I mean, it's just kind of saddens me to think that's the value, that's the bar that's been set now.
You know what I really hated when I did do the online dating and I got a girl's number and we were texting? I hated like the whole game you had to play with texting, where it's like, you better not send 3 texts in a row, 2 texts in a row, maybe, but don't you dare send 3 texts in a row. That's desperate. You got to play that patient game where it's like, you don't want to respond too quickly. No, then they might think you're desperate, but you don't want to wait 2 days before responding. You got to find that sweet window of.
Well, that's a really good analogy, to be fair.
Where you play that game. I hated that game. I hated that game. I hate that game. I still hate it. It's brutal, because why should you have to hold yourself back if you want to express something? And if the other person's worth your time and worth your while, if it's a friend, if it's a lover, no matter what, you should be able to express yourself when you want to, and they should be okay with that. You should be able to send them 2 or 3 texts in a row. Maybe you forgot to follow up on something. There's this hunger for, there's this like almost struggle for power between phones. Yeah. It's like, am I in control of this conversation? No, I feel like they're in control. I got to get control back. I got to not respond to them for, a couple hours. Now they're waiting for my text.
To a point.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's lots of manipulation around that, but impatience. Yeah, there's a lot of impatience. I mean, we have a long but short lifespan here on Earth. And in a way, like, we have lots of time, but people feel like they don't. You know, the longer life goes on, the quicker it goes by. You know, when you're a kid, the summer vacation feels like it's over in a blink of an eye. And you're like, damn it, I have to go back to school. Now the weekend, when I have like a couple days off, I don't know how other people feel about their days off, but I feel like my days off last for a long time. Like some weeks I get 3 days off in a row, and like that span is like a wonderful time for me to just like rejuvenate, do what I want to do, connect with friends. And it doesn't fly by. It goes by at a nice leisurely pace. Maybe because I don't fill my time up with things. I'm pretty laid back, and my listeners will know I don't exactly crank out the content on a daily basis. But you know, life goes by slower and slower, or faster and faster. I don't know. It depends on who you ask. I guess it depends on day to day.
Some people even say the opposite. I mean, when you're younger, you've only lived, let's say, 5 to 7 years. Let's say you're 7, and life has been going slow at that point. But when you've like doubled your life or even tripled that age, you know, 7, 14, so on and so forth, the years go quicker because you've lived, you know, 7 years, being 7 years old over 3 times or whatever it is.
But do they, or is it seem quicker when you look back on it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is when you reflect upon the history of it, and that's what makes people a lot depressed when they look back on life in that sense. Because I mean, he even talks about eventually about, you know, how depression and suicide have gone up a lot with things like this.
Oh yeah, and I'm not sure if it's probably a combination of just the generation being raised, how we've been raised.
Just not feeling good enough. But when, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying, how when you get shoved out there and you're put into like quite a corporate job, they're not really helping you either. So you sort of question yourself, but really it's just the state of the world today.
There's that, I wonder if it's also something to do with awareness and people telling them it's okay to express your sadness and depression and tell people about it, and then the technology kind of enables them to like reach out and look for validation and encouragement and stuff. Because like there were probably still a lot of depressed people in our previous generations, but there certainly wasn't the blatant awareness or confrontation of people. Didn't stick it in your face, right? But you scroll through your Facebook feed these days, and like every fourth one is someone just saying something very ambiguous or kind of depressing, or they share something like very deep and sad, and then you have all these people you know, giving them attention, which is fine. You know, people need support, but I'd rather people get support in person, right?
It's
like
really
being
3/4 attention seeking, those kind of statuses, isn't it?
See, there's a difference between posting a status that's like, I can't believe this happened, ... or don't, I don't want to talk to anyone right now, ellipses, right?
Yeah.
And then then they get upset when no one like comments, right? Versus someone who's very open and transparent, is like, hey everyone, just want to let you know this happened. I'm feeling kind of down. Would anyone care to talk about it? Or does anyone want to share like the highlights of their day to like cheer me up? I would really appreciate it. Then you know like what you're getting into. You have everything on the plate as is, and you can, I really appreciate open and honest communication from people. Even if it's like super depressing, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Express yourself, acknowledge that depression and that sadness, and let's find a way to move through it, or at least be okay with it.
Yeah.
Did you see?
I mean, I would appreciate more seeing stuff more like that than, as you said, the ambiguous type of, you know, really common posts that a lot of people do. And
there's he mentioned how we have this tendency to share, and vloggers do this especially, share with everyone how awesome our life is via social media.
Jesus.
When in reality, it's not.
Yeah.
Did you see PewDiePie's video on forced positivity?
Couldn't agree more with it. I think if anyone's listening to this, they need to check it out as well.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put a link in the description, but I mean, I'm sure most of you guys know where to find PewDiePie.
Yeah.
But it really resounded with me. And I actually watched that video on like a day when I was feeling kind of blue, and it cheered me up, not because he was like happy and making a funny video, but because he said something that really connected with me. And I was like, you know what? It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel kind of shitty sometimes, because you don't have happiness without a bit of sadness. You don't appreciate what you have before something is gone, or you feel differently. If only I could draw this, if you can see me drawing this physically, but like, let's say life is like a horizontal line, like that's like your neutral. And then you have like these ups and down curves, right? If you're just like a squiggle, just slightly above the line, you're living a very kind of two-dimensional life emotionally. But if you have these ups and these big downs, you're experiencing things in such a large way. And maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here, but it's something I've been thinking about. Like life is, man, this is getting really, really big and deep. Life is full of ups and downs. And if you don't go with those ups and downs and experience those ups and downs, you're kind of missing out on life. Life shouldn't be stagnant. You shouldn't be okay. And what really saddened me near the end, saddened me the most about what he was saying, and what like scared me the most, maybe not scared, but like concerned me, was when he talked about people going through life just being fine, being okay.
And how people are aspiring to live that kind of lifestyle, because as you were saying, a lot of people promote that. They don't want to deal with being not okay. So they'd rather just be okay and fine for their life without finding any really deep meaning or joy. It's so sad to think about. I'm sad, guys. It makes me sad, but I'm okay with it. Yeah, just living like the mediocre sort of sense of, I mean, I definitely rather, as you so beautifully visually painted out, have the wavy lines, instead of just one horizontal one. Just being okay with everything and just fine isn't much of a life.
It's pretty dull. It sounds pretty dull. Like, would you want to hang out with someone who is just okay all the time? Definitely not.
I mean, it's like, as you said as well, with the vlogging channels, and it's what he said in the video as well, with how a lot of people these days whack filters on everything, when in fact that's kind of teaches a lot of young people, oh, they must be having a good time. How do we have a good time? And then that person who's posted or published this vlog or photo, it's like, this is how you have a good time. And really, it's ... He doesn't really know. He's not really having a good time, or whatever they're doing or publishing. I mean, they might be. You might see the occasional thing, but half the time, I don't know what the right word for it is. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily fake, but they don't know the answer just as well as the person who's wondering if they're having such a good time, or how to go throughout life. Right? Why aren't I? And how do you do it? Where everyone really is in the same boat.
Yeah, this quest for permanent happiness isn't like a realistic goal. And that's and you see so much more like depression and shit. Man, I can't remember, like, even when I was in high school, I remember very few people like dropping out or missing class due to depression and stuff. I think that it's really gotten to people in like the last 10 years. Maybe I was a bit more oblivious. I don't know,
or maybe it's just being made a lot more aware these days. Because a lot of people back
that's true.
A lot of people back then, just mental health. A lot, even doctors said, or really people of higher stature and stuff, just thought it was in your head, and maybe thought it was a weakness and things like that. When just because you don't have an injury as literal as a broken arm doesn't mean you can't be broken in your mind.
Yeah,
That's the biggest thing about mental health awareness, really.
Yeah, I'm just looking through a Wikipedia article here on millennials. Wikipedia, everything is always right. I found the interesting reference. Someone called them, or is it trophy kids? Participation trophy kids. And when I think about just to link that like generalized depression that a lot of people are feeling with maybe how they were raised and not being good enough, the whole participation trophy, the whole everyone's a winner thing really gets to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Are they actually like full on implementing that in a lot of things, not even schools or like?
Yeah, no, they are in a lot of like sports leagues, like kids rec leagues and stuff.
Man. Yeah, especially from such a young age. That's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's implemented in like competitive leagues, but of course, not everyone can get into a competitive league, right? You have to have a certain level of. So even when they go from like a rec league and then they try out for a competitive league and they don't make it, it's I can imagine it's like brutal. It's like a real burst to their ego bubble as a kid.
I can only imagine being, I don't know, whatever age it is when this thing's awarded, and I personally would, might get awarded the participation trophy or the runners-up trophy or the last place trophy. That I could honestly see that being like an easy source for bullying or something like that,
Yeah, it's
just because it does mortify you.
You certainly an open door for ridicule, and there's like bullying is who is it talking? I was listening to a comedian the other day. He's like, bullying is a part of childhood, right? There will always be bullies, no matter how much like bullying awareness and stuff you do. There's always going to be bullies, as is there's bullying in real life when you get into the workplace. It's not the same kind of bullying, but there will always be people who push. There will be people who push you around, like emotionally, and especially in the workplace, like they'll maybe try to exploit you. And if you didn't have the childhood experience to deal with stuff like that, if you didn't have parents who could lead you through that process, teach you about that stuff without just running to the principal or crying bullying, you're setting, I don't know, back to the parenting thing, you're setting your kid up for failure down the road. And confidence building is a big part of that, because if you give everyone a participation trophy, they don't need to strive for something better. They don't need to build their confidence, because their confidence, it's like an empty fake confidence, possibly it's already there. They don't need to work on themselves. They don't need to prove themselves to anything. They don't need to aspire, really. And then when they get into the workforce,
first place, sort of.
Oh, absolutely. First place person feels pissed. Like, what the hell?
You worked hard for this shit.
I mean, at least give the kid like a bigger trophy who came in first. But I don't even think they do that. I think a lot of places just give everyone the exact same reward. And in the first place guy, their parents are like, hey, we're proud of you. You're the best, but everyone won. Yeah.
It just cringes me when I hear stuff like that.
Oh, it's so fake.
Yeah.
Parents, don't set your kids up for failure. God.
Yeah, or just rewarding it. I mean, because then they might think, it's kind of okay to just, fail, I guess.
Oh, and failure is part of life. It's okay to fail.
Yeah,
like I've had
but
failures.
To experience
I've had
it normally without a reward would be perfect.
Yeah, here's a reward for failure. Here's you failed, but here's a reward. You're still amazing. No, tell your kid they're a piece of shit, and to try harder next time.
It's like the ways we're trying to tackle like what we're even discussing today are also bad ways of what we're trying to tackle. Like that's like one of the ways like society, I guess, in multiple countries, I guess, are implementing things like that to tackle things like problems today that we're discussing, but we're just in fact making it worse with stuff like that, in terms of parenting.
Yeah.
Just
things are being
They're only coming
exacerbated.
back.
Exactly. Now, the last point Simon brought up. And I just wanted to point out, I actually looked up Simon on, believe it or not, Wikipedia, guys. Love Wikipedia. I was curious as to like Simon's background and what like expertise he brings, because he seems like a very much an idea guy, right? He's someone who thinks and I think it was him. Was it in this talk where he said, he said like ideas don't happen behind a screen. Like they happen when you're just kind of enjoying, what do you say? Enjoying life, enjoying
that definitely
appreciating.
Like, what you need to be doing,
when you're just,
I guess.
Yeah. When you're just like opening your eyes and looking at the world as it is instead of behind a screen. That's where ideas come from. This guy's he's got an undergrad in cultural anthropology. That's it. That's his educational expertise. But he seems like he spent so much time thinking about things. I mean, anthropology is pretty fascinating. I would have thought he was like maybe a sociologist or a cultural sociologist.
I'm surprised if that, is that all he's qualified in?
Yeah, that's it. He graduated high school and then he studied law. He studied law at London City University and received a BA in cultural anthropology. So he studied a bit of law, but ultimately graduated with a degree in anthropology.
I just think his views are really refreshing, for especially he's qualified as well.
Okay, so here, cultural anthropology is a branch of anthropology focused on the study of cultural variation among humans and is in contrast to social anthropology, which perceives cultural variation as a subset of the anthropological constant. I don't know, they sound kind of similar to me.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a difference. There's so many like subsets and specific areas of expertise or specific areas of studies when it comes to like people. I mean, there's a degree for everything these days.
Sorry?
Oh yeah, totally. It sounds fascinating. I just don't know what it is exactly.
Brilliant.
Well, and he's a guy who. Let me go back to. So he's more of an entrepreneur, and he just kind of gives motivational talks. So he's very much a public speaker. And I think what kind of launched his speaking career was he had the third most popular TED presentation of all time in 2009. He's also an author. He's published 3 books.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I found super interesting, even when I was just watching the video, is I saw like quite a few young people in the audience, and sometimes the camera went on this certain individual and he seemed so fixated by it, and he was very young as well, and I felt like, if I was there as well, that he was kind of me. And it's just like when I was watching the video, I was like, holy shit, you're right, you're so right. Like everything you're saying is concerningly unheard of these days, that people are so unaware of it, and it's scary to think. I mean, I always say this all the time to my friends in terms of anything you want to talk about with, I guess, being a millennial or even technology. It's scary to think what things are going to be like in 50 years time. I mean, let alone 25 years time.
Yeah. What do you envision? What do you envision in like 25 years? I mean, because by that time there will be, I mean, we'll probably have kids by that point.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to have kids, I don't know. But there'll be another generation, right? Another generation of millennials.
It scares me that, even seeing babies today who can genuinely operate apps on an iPad, and that isn't as uncommon as you'd think. I mean, sure, like, I wouldn't do that to my kid necessarily, but
it's so easy.
I've seen so many times.
It's so easy just to set them up with. It's so easy just to set them up with an it's an automatic babysitter, really.
Yeah, I mean, this could be like a whole different topic, really. It's like, yeah, I do get why the parents do it, but like, Jesus, I mean, how savvy like this new generation of kids will be by the time they're even 3. I remember when I was 4 or 5, I had a Game Boy Color. That was as advanced as it got,
Yeah,
not an iPad where I could click on an app and watch some broadcast of some.
Yeah, you know what really concerns me is by the time kids are like 5, they'll have a larger online photographical, videographical presence and existence and history than like I have had for my entire like life. Like, because their parents will post pictures or videos of them like every day, right?
Yeah.
These kids basically have Facebook accounts that through their parents. I've seen so many parents have like use their kid as their like profile picture, you know, their kid playing in their living room as their like banner. It's like these parents turn their own social profiles into their children's social profiles, and it revolves all around their children.
Yeah.
Like I mean, have some sense of identity and respect for your children.
Yeah. I mean, I had this conversation with my girlfriend not so long ago. It's how we were talking about how basically her baby videos are like no longer around because her brother like re-recorded over them. But it's just, you know, in terms of tapes, and that used to be the thing. And now you would never do that. Like in these days, you can't. And I mean, in all reality, back in those days when our parents would tape us when we were kids, you know, on a holiday or whatever, it's very rare that you ever got to watch them. But now in this day and age, let alone the future, it's literally you get a camera or even a phone and you can share that. It's like back in those days, you couldn't send a tape to your friends, like my friend Ross or something. Hey, check this out. Here's my kid doing this. I couldn't do that really with a tape, nor would anyone really be bothered to. And maybe, I mean, it's quite unlikely though. But with a phone, it's just like, hey, check this out. Share via WhatsApp or Facebook, and halfway across the world, you could see that. And it's just crazy.
In a way, yeah, it's crazy. In a way, it is wonderful though. Like, let's say your grandparents can't visit you on a regular basis, right? They get to kind of get a window into your life every once in a while. But I mean, there are private ways to share that as well. And I can't tell you how many people
Facebook.
I can't tell you how many people I've unfollowed on Facebook because I don't want to hear about their kid throwing up anymore.
God. Yeah. But no, it's super interesting. As I said, I'm kind of scared, but I'm interested. But it's like when I spoke to you kind of even before this podcast, I don't think, no matter how much awareness, even we're talking about this now, everything, whether it comes to parenting, whether it becomes when you get out of the whole grasp of your parents and you're out into the real world, into a corporate job perhaps, and sort of second guessing your own worth and stuff like that. I don't think, and when it comes to technology, I don't think this is ever going to go backwards. I think it's only going to worsen, you know. That's what I'm scared about. Like, I don't think it's going to get any better. I think people will try, but the more technology that comes out, the more that will make even the generations right now, when they become parents themselves, they'll become more reliant on technology than our own parents were. I mean, think about our own parents. They definitely weren't around with iPads and stuff like that. I mean, the first
they had
computers
books.
came in the 90s.
They had books and typewriters.
So you can see where I'm going with this. Like, let alone, I'm not necessarily saying us, but maybe a 13-year-old right now. So when they reach adulthood and become parents, and they've relied on so much more technology than what me and even you have interacted with in our adolescence, whatever. Just think about how much this situation could potentially get worse, and how much more depression and how much more future generations through being
their
raised
kids
like
are going
this
to
will be second guessing.
Well, and that's why it's important to have these conversations so that the generation that's growing up now can try and at least like stick some fingers in the dam, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's basically the goal of every parent to kind of do slightly better than what their parents did, and to kind of fix something, you know, do something a bit better. And I think that will still continue to be the case, but it's almost like an addiction to technology will kind of mitigate that. You know, there'll be a whole slew of different problems. Like, sure, kids won't necessarily feel unloved or alone and stuff because their parents will, you know, like loving your kids and validating your kids and hugging your kids is like more prevalent than ever, which is awesome. Parents know the importance of like encouraging their children and expressing their love for their children. Whereas, you know, my grandmother, she's told me like she was raised by a nanny and she didn't see her real mother much. And she told me that she felt like she wasn't loved, and that all she wanted was to hear her mother say, "I love you," and get a hug. And we're past that, which is amazing, but we're in this new area of parenting issues that we're almost helpless to, because like Simon said, it's addicting, and it's going to get even more addicting. Yeah. I think it's,
I feel like it's like that as well, but I feel like the technology is also making, depends on what age you kind of get this, you know, laptop or whatever. But for me, it definitely, in my opinion, for me, it made me more independent from my own family, where I don't know how much time, you know, family time you spent with your parents or like family, but definitely when I was growing up in my teenage years, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm really close to my family, but as a result of, you know, getting into the world of technology quite young, it made me more independent to even wanting spend proper time with my family. And I feel like that is a common problem with technology. You almost, it's promoting independence from your own family, really, you know, getting up in your own bedroom, going on your computer, instead of coming home from school, saying hi to your mum and dad, spending time in the lounge and watching TV shows together. You would do it in your own room. Some people.
I definitely see. I spent the first. I moved out to go to university when I was 19, and then I moved back in with my parents afterwards for a few years. So I did spend a lot of my early adult life with my parents, and then when I finally moved out, I felt like really like I could, you know, spread my wings. But yeah, in the last few years, I've really come to appreciate their guidance and their company more than ever, especially recently with things going on. Family is, you know, they unconditionally love you, and it's important to acknowledge and appreciate that. It's sad to me though, because I don't have a car anymore. Like I got, my car got hit a few years ago, and I've just been busing ever since. So I live on the opposite side of the city from my parents. So, you know, we'll talk, we'll email just about every day, but I only see them maybe once every couple of weeks. Going out to dinner with my dad tonight, so that'll be nice because he works near where I live. I wish I could spend more time with him, but my damn city is just too fucking big. Why don't I it's wonderful we have all this green space, but sometimes I just wish we lived in a concrete jungle and everyone just built vertically, and there wasn't this hunger for space, and everyone wants a 4-bedroom, 3-bed house with a backyard and a 2-acre lot. Maybe that's just like the me who lived in Asia talking, but
I know what you mean. Definitely. But yeah, I think it's just, I feel like, especially for people growing up nowadays, we'll feel more disconnected. I'm not saying this is going to be the same for everyone at all, but we'll just feel more disconnected from their family due to technology, really, than what we necessarily experienced growing up.
Why? Something I was wondering, was why do you think we were raised in the certain way that we were? Like, certainly my parents' generation, the baby boomer generation, wasn't raised being told they could be anything they wanted to be. Wasn't told all the time that they were unconditionally loved. Wasn't given participation trophies. Why do you think that's changed? Like, I'm just searching for answers here. Yeah, like this new set of parenting guidelines. Has it been due to new publishing, new ideas? Like where, cultural, especially anthropology, is such a complicated but interesting thing. Like where did this sprout from? Right, like obviously parenting changes from generation to generation. But how did we get down this path?
Yeah, the only excuse I can think of is like, I mean, if I was to ever say that to my own kid, but like, um, I mean, you just want to inspire them. I mean, you'd just be. I guess I'd just be thinking not so much about, it, but like, yeah, you can do anything you want to do, and you're like, and the kid might be thinking, okay, you know, I'm going to try really hard to become a doctor or something like that. But you know, the whole problem with this whole topic is like, you know, when they actually get out there, it's like crap. Like we're through too much security from their parents and through too much, you know, thinking, oh, you know, mum said I can do this, and I'm sure I'll be able to. When they get out there, it's not like they might be like, oh no, I'm actually not built for this at all. I think if they mean well. Yeah, I mean, the question, as what you posed, is it is weird. Where did all that come from? Like, where did I think just the idea of hoping that it would be the right thing to say, and that the kid would go out and do that. I mean, I feel maybe, you know, the kid is seen as delusional in a way for when they get out in the real world and they realize that they're not special and what their parents said for them, you know, isn't actually the case. But the parent is also just as delusional telling their child this. I mean,
But
sure,
do you think
encourage your
it?
kid, but
Yeah. Do you think it comes from a place of wanting to wanting to love and encourage your child more than you were as a child? Like I mentioned before, like each generation kind of tries to up the ante and be parent a bit better than their parents did. But do you think at some point that got out of hand?
I
Like they
think
got
it's a
like,
mixture of that as well as maybe they're not feeling that fulfilled in their own lives as well. So they want to
oh,
say
and they
to
want to
their
live
kid, you have so
vicariously
much
through,
more. Yeah.
they want to live through their
That,
children vicariously in a way.
yeah. I mean, they might have their own, I mean, they might not be satisfied with their own job. So that, I mean, think about it. When you have a kid, you want the best for them, right? I mean, I'm not saying this from experience, but
Right.
I can only imagine when I have my own kid, I'm like, if let's say I am at a deadbeat job, which I mean, the statistic is ridiculously high. I read something not so long ago that a stupid percentage of people really hate their job. I mean, but that is so normal these days.
Hmm.
So
Well,
you
someone has to do the
naturally you
shitty
want,
work.
huh? Yeah. So
Someone has to
naturally
do
you
the
want your
shitty
kid to
jobs.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So naturally you want your kid to just do whatever they want their dreams to be. I mean, so I guess I don't know. Maybe there's a bit too much promotion in that because you often the parents should also ask themselves. I mean, sure, there's some cases of them not helping themselves, but they should also ask themselves, how did I actually get up here? And is it likely that my kid, even through trying to do what they want to do, will also end up here? So maybe give them some realistic advice as well as not swaying too much.
See,
But
when I was raised, I wasn't, my parents told me like I should do what I want to do, but they never
yeah,
put the expectations on me to like do great things. They always told me like whatever you decide to do will support you as long as
yeah,
you're happy. And I think that's really important to tell a child like you don't have to do incredibly great things as long as what you do is as long as what you do
fulfilling.
fulfills you, you know.
Yeah,
Um, so I guess in a way, I when I hit the workforce, and so I eventually went back to just like a community college for a 2-year diploma with a more realistic mindset. Like I just want to get into the workforce, start my life independently, and I didn't have those delusions of grandeur. There, of course, are people out there who are incredibly smart and will do amazing things, but not everyone can. And I think I came to terms with that and I was okay with it. And I think my parents probably had a lot to do with that. Like you're doing something that helps people as long as you're happy and fulfilled. That's,
I think
that's amazing. That's great.
people also compare themselves a lot to the people they're surrounded with. Not just, I mean, I know this is parenting we're talking about, but a lot of people compare themselves to their friends, or like they might see that they might have a job that they're doing well in, and you know they might be earning good money, and they're actually happy, and then you might look at yourself and say, um, second guess yourself. And this applies to what the technology thing we spoke about earlier. You know, people might put a filter on something and make it look beautiful, but really that could have actually been a shit day for them. But it is like, oh man, that looks, you know, why am I not living the life they're living? Everyone
Oh
these
yeah.
days is putting, I mean,
Mm.
not everyone's comparing themselves to other people, and you should just only really think about yourself, what you
And
want to
to
do, not care
to
what other
expand
people.
yeah, to expand on that, who you keep company with like affects you like chemically. It has a profound effect on your personality, no matter how strong an identity you think you have. Who you hang out, like that's why it's so important to choose your friends wisely. Like some people say, you know, oh, it doesn't matter who I hang out with because I know who I am, I know what I value. And you can't always choose your friends, but you can definitely choose your friends. And sometimes you need to cut people out of your life because they drag you down. It actually changes the chemicals in your brain depending on who you're around, because personalities, like I said, we're social beings and personalities affect each other profoundly. That's why like some people just don't get along with each other and some people get along amazingly well.
I mean, a lot of people also just go to college because their friends doing that and friends doing that course, and 2 years down the qualification you come out of it. I mean, this wasn't personally for me, even though I did go to a college and do a course I didn't want to do. Yeah, I mean, I guess that does sort of parallel. You just like,
you know what,
I just
actually,
wasted 2 years of my life.
I actually have that experience because I went to the university I went to because my best friend was going there. And I applied to a few different universities. I got accepted to all of them, but I ultimately decided to go to this one because my friend, he wasn't in the same program, but he was going there. And I was like, that seems like it would be comfortable and easy. And I kind of wish I hadn't. Like, who knows what would have happened if I had gone somewhere else. I'd probably have a useless degree anyway. And what was it? I also got accepted to a Queen's for like, what was it, like adaptive and creative communication or something totally out there. But you know, who knows what would happen. I wish I would have ventured out and risked a bit more.
I feel like at that age also, I mean, people aren't so independent. You sort of rely upon what everyone else is doing, and if they're doing that, then it might be good for me.
Yeah. Well, you see someone else like it working out for someone else, you're like, maybe that'll rub off on me. I could do that too. Yeah,
sort of an identity crisis, really. I mean, yeah, it's just the way the world's going doesn't help you form your own
and there's also this incredible pressure from the environment to get out there and get educated and start your life now. You know, like you're done high school, boom, time to move on already. You know, which bleeds a bit more into the environment thing. Environment is such a complicated thing. I feel like Simon did bring up some good points about environment, but not everyone, you know, has the same environment. There's so many different environments. I haven't experienced that corporate. Okay, in a way I kind of have, because my current job doesn't really value so much staff development, but you know, we're unionized and we're taken care of. But there's such a variety of environments. I feel like environment is it's a factor, but I don't think it's as big of a factor as like the other three things he mentioned.
Yeah,
because like patience directly ties into the technology thing and all that stuff. But yeah, he pointed out.
I was just gonna like say, corporate jobs these days, like the most generic job, whether it's what you want to get into or not, just don't help people with their job fulfillment. Really, like a fulfilling job, like, oh, I've got a great job and it really makes me happy. I feel fulfilled. And companies, they don't really care about the people so much they employ. They care about the numbers and stuff like that. And there should be a lot more, old-fashioned values to it. Like, not so much. I mean, obviously, it's all about money and stuff like that at the same time. But he mentions how there's people not feeling fulfilled with their jobs, and that's just so true with so many big companies you might work for. And it's just a shame that even when you get out and you don't know what to do yourself, if you do end up in something, the job itself makes you question, like, oh, is this something I'm doing wrong and stuff like that.
I haven't experienced that soul-sucking job yet. I hope I never have to, but it doesn't sound very appealing. You've been working on your own a lot, eh? But you still work for some people?
I mean, I've worked for like, your traditional like retail job like years and years ago, stuff like that. I mean, or even if it's a part of a really big retail sort of thing. And it is true. It's just sometimes they do make you feel undervalued. They only care specifically for the numbers, which is fair enough. But they can make the staff feel really undervalued, as I said, and it makes you think, am I doing something wrong? But really, it's just too much pressure, and they care too much about making more money. Where instead of making their employees feel good and fulfilled in what they're doing and creating a good atmosphere, it just it's the wrong way to approach it. And I feel like there's so many flaws like that in so many jobs out there these days. I mean, as I said, as you said, like luckily you haven't experienced that, but I think it is quite the norm these days.
Yeah, I haven't. I count my lucky stars that I haven't had to deal in the food industry or retail so much.
Yeah,
I've been pretty lucky to have. So I've heard have other experiences. Let's see, I've done the closest I came to retail was I worked in a furniture store, but I was in the warehouse, so I just had to like package furniture and deliver stuff. We got to just like drink coffee and hang out a lot of the day. It was good. Yeah. It was a family business. There wasn't too much pressure, but I haven't had to deal with, like front end retail really. I always try to be nice to people, to customer service reps and retail people, because I know like they probably have a lot of shitty days. And if you're listening right now and you have experience in retail, man, let us know how soul sucking it is, or if you like it. I don't know. Maybe it depends on the company, but let us know in the comment section.
It's also society as well. Like in a quick wrap up with that, it's like also people view people who work in retail as not actual people. Like I've had so many experiences where somebody might come up to me and I think to myself after the whole scenario, it's just like, I would never ever dream of speaking to somebody like that, even behind the till or a desk or whatever. But there's some people who just treat you like objects and they forget that, oh, I'm actually speaking quite badly this way or frustratingly to this person, and I'm not thinking about how crap it. People think of us as like futuristic robots behind the tills when we actually have feelings and stuff like that too. So society doesn't help as well as corporate, rules with fulfillment. It's
a large issue. It's a complicated issue. I'd love to know what you guys think, viewers, but we've hit our hour. It's been a really good conversation. I know. Time goes by when you're just shit talking a lot, just talking about ideas. I love talking. It's been the first episode of Shockwave. I've enjoyed it. Next week, I'm not sure what the topic is going to be, but we're going to have a guest on, and we're going to try to have a new guest on every week, just to mix things up, to keep conversations tart and interesting. And we'll obviously probably let that person drive the topic a little bit. PewDiePie, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the podcast.
It would be brilliant if we got someone like him on.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to get someone with over 50 million subscribers on. I mean, everyone wins except him. Anyway, thanks, Luke.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been great talking about this. I mean,
I'll see you next week. Yeah, I'll see you next week. I'll see everyone else next week. It's been quite enlightening. Any last words before we sign off, Luke? Any words of wisdom?
What we talked about today, I guess. I mean, if you watch the video, I'm sure it'll be linked of Simon talking about it. It's just, you'll be surprised when you watch it about how much it enlightens you to the actual scenario and situation we see ourselves in everyday life today. And that is my final words of wisdom.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say goodbye and leave you with this cool little sting outro to end the podcast. So you guys take care. Don't worry. If you're a millennial like us, it doesn't mean life's over. It doesn't mean you're totally screwed. It just means you have to work a little bit and do some self-reflection. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.